It began with disbelief, the kind that stops you cold and makes the world blur. A mother screamed that her daughter was gone. She said she had checked, and her child wasn't there. Someone must have taken her. For anyone nearby, it sounded like every parent's worst nightmare unfolding in real time. But as hours turned into days and then years, the details began to clash with the story that had first been told. There were no signs of forced entry, no broken shutters, no broken locks, no signs of a struggle. Some who examined the evidence started to wonder if there had been any abduction at all. The more they looked, the more they began to believe the little girl may have died in that very apartment, and that instead of calling for help, someone in that apartment panicked and hid what happened. On the night of May 3rd, 2007, the child's parents were dining with friends at a small resort restaurant just a short walk from their holiday apartment. They weren't far, but they weren't close enough either. The father later said he checked on the children at around 9:05 p.m. He claimed everything looked normal. His daughter was asleep, nothing out of place. But earlier, at around 9 p.m., one of their friends had volunteered to check as well. He went inside, glanced into the room, and thought everything seemed fine. Except, according to later accounts, he may not have even seen the girl in her bed. He didn't walk all the way in, didn't make sure, didn't raise any alarm. He walked back to the table and told everyone it was fine. From that moment, there's a hole in the timeline. Nearly an hour passed between that 9:05 p.m. check and the mother returning at 10 p.m. to find the girl missing. In that hour, there were no screams, no reported noise, no one outside the group saw or heard anything unusual. At 10 p.m., the mother raised the alarm. She screamed her daughter's name. People from other apartments joined the search. Tourists were stopped. The police were called. But by then, critical time had already slipped away. The layout of the apartment raised new questions. The back door had been left unlocked. It opened to a small garden that led directly to an unlit pathway. At night, the path was cloaked in darkness with no cameras, no lights, no one to see who came or went. The window in the children's room had been opened too, but forensic investigators found no signs of tampering. The latch wasn't forced. There were no marks from tools, no foreign fingerprints, no smudges, nothing. And yet, the parents insisted someone had climbed through that very window. The day before, a neighbor living directly above the apartment remembered hearing the little girl crying for over an hour. She cried and cried, but no one came. This detail later made many wonder if the girl was in the habit of waking up and looking for her parents, something that might have happened again the night she disappeared. Some investigators and observers pieced together a disturbing possibility. Maybe the child woke up, got out of bed, and climbed onto the couch in the living room, the one positioned under the window. Maybe she wanted to see where her parents were. Maybe she was confused or calling out. Some believe she might have stood on the couch to look out the window, lost her balance, and fallen headfirst onto the tile floor. The impact could have been devastating. A child that age could suffer fatal head trauma from such a fall. And that could explain why cadaver dogs later alerted to that exact area and why faint traces of blood were found beneath the tiles. When the cadaver and blood dogs were brought into the investigation, their reactions created even more questions. These were not ordinary pets. They were elite dogs trained to find human remains and human blood. When they entered the apartment, one dog alerted to the smell of death in the room where the girl had reportedly slept. He alerted behind the wardrobe, an area that wasn't in view and rarely accessed. He also alerted to one of the mother's jackets. The second dog, trained to find blood, confirmed several alerts. Weeks later, both dogs reacted strongly to a silver Renault Scenic, a rental car obtained by the family nearly a month after the girl vanished. They alerted in the trunk. They even alerted to the car key fob. Samples were taken, and DNA testing revealed something chilling. A 15 out of 19 marker match to the missing girl's profile. That's not enough for an open and shut legal conviction, but it's far too significant to ignore. Witnesses added even more weight. 2 different people saw a man carrying a small, barefoot, blonde-haired girl that night. One of those witnesses was a friend of the family. the other a man from Ireland vacationing with his family. The Irish witness later said that after seeing the father on television carrying one of his twins in a similar way, he was 80% sure the man he saw that night was the same man. Then there's the missing tennis bag. Before that night, the father had been seen almost daily carrying a large blue tennis bag to the resort's courts. After that night, it was never seen again. It wasn't in the apartment, it wasn't in the car, it wasn't on any police inventory list. Witnesses swear they saw it before, but no one saw it after. People began asking an uncomfortable question. Could that bag have been used to move the body? The size was right. It could have been done quickly. And its disappearance suggests that if it had been used, it may have been destroyed or taken far away. The rental car only deepened suspicion. The family rented the Renault Scenic 24 days after the disappearance. That's when the dogs alerted, and when DNA consistent with the girl's profile was found in the trunk. Skeptics have suggested contamination, but the combination of cadaver scent and matching DNA is hard to explain away. Another gap opened when investigators examined the father's phone records. On the night the girl vanished, his phone went silent. No calls, no texts, no GPS activity for hours. And later, when questioned by police, the mother refused to answer dozens of direct questions, even some of the most basic ones like whether she checked certain doors or why she didn't scream immediately. Instead of fully cooperating with investigators, powerful lawyers and media consultants were brought in almost immediately. Press coverage was carefully shaped. Legal threats were made against anyone who suggested anything beyond an abduction. Over the years, the case dragged on. Different investigations launched and stalled. Millions of pounds were spent on Operation Grange, a review by British police. But even that effort began with a controversial choice. The parents and their friends were ruled out as suspects from the very start. The case became one of the most high-profile missing children stories in history. News coverage ran for years. Fundraisers, posters, vigils, all keeping the girl's name alive. But as time went on, the questions never went away. Why was there no forced entry? Why was the back door left open? Why did cadaver dogs alert to the apartment, the rental car, the clothing, and the car keys? Why was the tennis bag never seen again? Why was there a silent hour no one could explain? For some, the simplest explanation is the hardest to accept. That the child died in that apartment, maybe from an accident, and that someone panicked. Fear can be powerful. The fear of losing a career, the fear of losing custody of surviving children, the fear of prison, the fear of being blamed for something you didn't mean to happen. If the girl died accidentally, what happened next may have been driven by that fear. A body could have been hidden quickly in the brush behind the apartment. Later, after the media frenzy calmed slightly, it could have been moved in that missing tennis bag, maybe transported in the rental car, maybe taken somewhere it would never be found. The early search failures made that easier. The overgrown field and brush directly behind the apartment weren't fully searched the first night. No one secured the area immediately. That field, dark and unlit, was only a few steps away. It could have hidden almost anything. Even today, nearly 2 decades later, no body has ever been found. The cadaver dogs don't guess. Their alerts are trained and tested. The DNA didn't just appear by chance in a car rented weeks later. The missing bag didn't just vanish on its own. Every unanswered question, every missing item, every quiet hour in the timeline lingers. For those who believe there was no abduction, these pieces all point to a single chilling possibility: that the child's death was a tragic accident, and what followed was a desperate attempt to erase it. Over time, silence took on its own meaning. The silence in the apartment for nearly an hour, the silence in the phone records, the refusal to answer simple questions, the reluctance to revisit critical evidence. That silence may speak louder than any confession ever could. And almost 20 years later, the world is still left asking, what really happened on that quiet night in Portugal?
They hate you. You're gonna die. I don't want to do this.